Good morning, Hope City. Good to be with you guys today. Good to see you guys on this Sunday. We kicked off a series last week that we titled Out of Step. And we recognized a few things that it's actually easy for yourself to get out of step with the things that matter most, whether that's relationships, whether that is your finances, your community, or even your attitude. There are times when you're like, I just need to put myself in check here for a second and get it all back in order. And little things can just set you off, can't they? They kind of get you out of whack. I don't know about you. Any other like type A, Enneagram 3s in the room? Anybody? Anybody that likes to control things? Any little like OCD habits or tendencies? You're my people, okay? Like you and I, like you are my people, and you might understand this. But for me, I have a really hard time when I walk into my garage, and if things are just like everywhere, like if like it's strewn all over the place, and tools that's been left out, or like old bags of stuff, and just like stuff sitting around, and I'm like, I got a job to do. Like I gotta fix this, or I gotta get this working again, or I gotta work on this thing. And so what ends up happening in my world, I don't know about you, but in my world, I have to clean and organize the garage before I do the job that's in front of me. Before I go and fix the thing, before I go and solve the problem, I've got to put everything back in place and in order. Same thing is true if you walk into my office. My desk, like I will never be the guy that has like papers stacked all over the place and like, I'm losing things because I can't find it. I can't even do work until I like clean it up, put it away, and then I can start all over again. But here's the problem. The problem is that, okay, that's all good and like cool that I like order. I like things that everything has a place and a home. But sometimes that sense of urgency of cleaning it up and reorganizing it can actually steal the task that needs to be done. It steals the time. It steals the effort that I had. And then I get to it and I'm like, oh, well, I don't have any time left. Like this is all over. Uh-oh. Like I can't do it. The urgent sometimes overwhelms the important. And that's a problem with discipline, isn't it? We've said that discipline is the art of making consistent, positive choices that steer you towards your goals and dreams. This is what discipline looks like. And when you get out of step or out of sync with discipline, it is a lot easier to trip up. And you miss out on your goals and your dreams. And somehow we miss out on goals and dreams because of a lack of discipline or a lack of direction. But sometimes it's just because we have a lack of desire. Last week we said this phrase that discipline without desire is drudgery, meaning you might know the thing that you need to do, but if you don't have the desire to have that thing happen, you will never be a disciplined person in that way, which is why for the next several weeks we are diving into God's Word and what does He say about some critical disciplines for your life and for mine, and not just like what we need to do, but why should we do these things? Because we understand something, that we make our choices, and then our choices make us. We make the choices in our life, and then we find out that those choices, they develop our life. They make us. And one of the most profound choices that you can possibly make is, what do you do with your time? How often do you find yourself saying, man, I just wish I had more time. Did anybody say that this week? I wish I had more time this week to get some stuff done. I wish I had more time to spend with the kids, or more time to pray and read the Bible. Or I wish I had more time to work out and go fishing or hang with friends. And I wish I had more time to serve on the dream team here at church. I just wish I had more time. But what gets in the way of that time? Little things, right? Like little things like a sink filled with dirty dishes, or anybody going home to one of those, right? Like, okay, no shame, no judgment here. It's okay. Or maybe you've got kids that need tending to, diapers changed, whatever. Like you got a husband that's a mess, and you're trying to help him and clothe him and get him out the door to work on time. Or you've got laundry that's piling up, and all the while you've got to take Instagram pictures of how good you're doing it and how cool that looks as you're doing those chores, right? We also have technology that's in your back pocket right now that's begging for your attention. in this exact moment. There's emails and social media and podcasts. And in my world right now, there's Duolingo, which, if you heard about that missions trip, I want to encourage you, start learning Spanish right now. Duolingo is a great way of doing it. But be careful, because that little green bird is going to get you. And every day it's going to be pinging you for your attention and your time. And we just find ourselves saying, man, I wish that I had more time. See, it's the choices that we make. Our choices make us. I don't know if you've ever felt that way, like the day just gets away from you. You get to the end of the day, you're exhausted, and then you go, but what did I even do? Right? Like, why am I so tired right now? I don't even know what I did. And yet we would say, hey, how you doing? I'm good. Oh, what's going on? I'm busy. And you just talk about busyness. Like, I'm just so busy. But are we busy with the right things? Like the things that matter the most? See, whenever you feel like there's so much to do, there's oftentimes you're rushed from one place to another or one task to another. You may be tempted to say, you know what? There just isn't enough hours in the day. I'm going to be the bad guy today. And I'm going to tell you this, that you have time for what you choose to have time for. Like, that stings a little bit. But I don't know if I have time to read that book or go back to school for furthering my education. But you had time to binge watch that latest Netflix series, right? Like, you had time for that. And, I don't have time to exercise and go to the gym to work out. But you had time to consume an entire bag of Doritos while the Gators were playing yesterday, right? You had time to watch a team that was running around on a field, but you don't have time to go exercise yourself. Like, the question is, will we choose what is important over what is urgent? Will we choose the things that matter the most? Like, if you own a business, dealing with an angry customer, that is an urgent need. But building a system that keeps customers from getting angry, that's important. Getting your engine repaired, that is urgent. You need that thing to work, right? But changing the oil in your car so that you don't have to get it repaired is important. Getting help when you're sick is urgent. That's an urgent need. But taking care of yourself so that you don't get sick is important. If we choose the important, if we start to look at things that way, we won't have as many things that are so urgent. Jesus had a fascinating interaction with several people, actually, that were filled with busyness in their life. They just were busy, wall-to-wall busyness, and yet Jesus invited them into something new. And I want you guys to open your Bibles to Matthew chapter 4, verses 18 through 22. You can follow along in the message notes. Just scan that QR code over there. Open your Hope City app. And on the screens behind me as well will be that scripture. But we're going to learn from a story of some men that were on their own mission. These guys were hard at work in their family's business. And I want you to check out what's happening here in verse 18. We find Jesus walking along the Sea of Galilee. And he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake because they were fishermen. So Jesus walks up to these guys hard at work, throwing their nets into the sea. And they're not like recreational fishermen the way that you and I might be. Like, that's for fun. Like, sometimes I do that for fun. And sometimes I just go by the water. I don't even care if I catch a fish. It's just so that I can be by the water. And fishing, that's a bonus, right? These guys are professional fishermen. Like, this is their career. Think like the show Deadliest Catch. Think the show Wicked Tuna, right? They're out working hard, trying to provide for their family. And Jesus interrupts them with this one invitation. He says 3 words, come follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. At once, they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw 2 other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called them, and immediately they left their boat and their father and followed him. Can you imagine this, right? Like, a respected rabbi comes up to you at work, and he goes, hey, I want you to put that down. Just follow me. Just come on, man. Like, come with me, right? Like, imagine what the fishermen could have said. They could have said, like, hey, sorry, Jesus, like, I'd love to spend time with you, but I've got so many urgent tasks to do, right? Like, I've got these nets that need mending. I've got these fish that need to be cleaned. They did the exact opposite. They saw an opportunity. Jesus was at their job, And he was inviting them into something else. And they did exactly what a good disciple was supposed to do. They left their stuff behind and they followed in the footsteps of their rabbi. They followed in the dust of their rabbi. They would walk where he walked. They would sit where he sat. And they would listen and learn from him. There was nothing that was going to stand in the way for them. Not a family business, not the latest catch, nothing. And we learn a critical idea in the interaction between Jesus and these fishermen. Each of them made a choice. Every single one of them made a choice, and they had a decision to make between the opportunities that was in front of them in that moment or the things that were expected of them in their culture and career. And all four of these defied the default decision. They looked at the thing that they were supposed to do, and they said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something different. Jesus invited them, and they said yes. Have you ever thought about the fact that if they didn't say yes, that you would probably never know their names? Like Peter, James, John, Andrew. You wouldn't know their names if they didn't say yes to Jesus' invitation. When they said yes, the world changed. God used them in a mighty way. They followed Jesus for 3 years, and then Jesus released them into the world in ministry, and they turned it upside down. And we're still to this day talking about 4 guys, other 12 that they did some incredible things. But what if they said, you know what, Jesus, now's actually not a good time. We were out in the boat and we caught a ton of fish, Jesus, and I got to fillet all these fish and I got to get them to market. And if I don't do this, my dad's going to kill me. This is awful, Jesus. Come back maybe in a week, right? Or come back when fishing season is over. Or, you know what else they could have said? James and John, they could have been like, Jesus, we just have so much we got to do, so much responsibility. These nets don't mend themselves. If I don't mend these nets today, I'm not going to eat next week. My family will starve. I don't understand. And see, as a child of God, you and I, we've been designed to know and experience God, to answer his call in our life and to sit at his feet in worship and to listen to his voice and respond appropriately. See, if we're going to battle busyness in our life, there are 2 things that I want us to learn today, because we're going to be faced with decisions all the time. Decisions like this, that God's going to have an opportunity for you and something is going to come and stand in the way of that. Culture's going to say one thing, your heart might tell you something else. And that is that you and I, we need to live by design, not by default. Live by design, not by default. And what I'm saying by this is that I believe that God created every single person in this room to live on purpose for a purpose. But somewhere along the lines, we start to live on our own for our own. And we start to think about, what if I did this because it would make me feel really good or really comfortable? And yet Jesus consistently is inviting us out and to live by design. And I'm telling you this, our lives, they work best when we operate according to their God-given design, not by the cultural demands that are placed on us. See, what if God's invitation for your life required you to say no to some other invitations in life? God may be asking you to invest in the life of another person, and you could feel it, you're like, I know that I need to do this. And yet you're so busy that you can't actually get it done. See, I have a pretty strong conviction that we don't need more margin. We don't need more margin and white space in our life and space to just kick back and relax. It's been popular, in years gone by for people to talk about, I just need to not do stuff and just need to sit there and be still and calm and quiet. And I'm like, yeah, but if you go back to Genesis, one of the first things that we were supposed to do is work, and work is not evil. Work is not a product of the fall and of sin. See, we don't need more margin. We don't need more margin for more Netflix and comfort. We need more margin for what matters most, for the things that actually matter, because busyness is the enemy of margin. Your busyness will just keep you filled and keep you moving. Dr. Suzanne Coven, She wrote this article for the Boston Globe 10 years ago, and the title of it was fascinating to me. She said, "Busy is the new sick." And she wrote about what she was seeing in her patients. She said, "In the past few years, I've observed an epidemic of sorts, patient after patient suffering from the same condition. The symptoms of this condition include fatigue, irritability, don't look at your wife, insomnia, anxiety, headaches, heartburn, bowel disturbances, back pain, and weight gain. There are no blood tests or x-rays diagnostic of this condition yet, and yet it's recognizable. The condition is excessive busyness." So a medical professional writing to a community, a medical community, saying busyness is actually unhealthy for you. Busyness is the enemy of margin. And we were designed for community. Last week we talked about that, but we were also designed for purpose. God has given you talents and abilities. You've known that since the time that you were a little kid. Like, you knew there were certain things that you're just good at, right? Like, some of you are just really talented and artistic, and some of you are really good with music. Some of you are really good with kids. Some of you are just really, really talented when it comes to technical things. It just works in your brain. You've known that from the time that you were a little kid, and it just kind of clicked. But also, if you're a follower of Jesus, the Holy Spirit lives inside of you. And the Bible says that you've been given a spiritual gift. So there's also a supernatural ability that God gives you. Maybe that's a gift of discernment. Maybe that's a gift of gentleness and kindness. And maybe it's patience. Maybe God has given you the gift of generosity. Maybe God has gifted you in a way and you're experiencing it, but you haven't really leaned all into it. See, we need to live on purpose. And the question is, are you using your gifts and talents? Are you using them in a way that makes a difference in your life, but also in the lives of other people? Because I think that your best life is found when you're living on purpose for God's purpose. That you will be most satisfied, not when you've binged the entire series, but when you have served a community, when you have given of yourself. See, it's easy to slip into default mode and say, well, what do I need to do to satisfy my boss or to keep everybody at home happy? What do I need to do just to kind of be a people pleaser? And we can't live like this. We weren't designed to live like this. You know, Jesus recruited a couple more people to be disciples of his, but there's one interaction in Matthew chapter 9, just a couple pages over. Flip over to Matthew 9. We're going to see Jesus interacting with one of his other disciples. It says, as Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him. Same two words. Same outcome. Matthew got up and followed him. You know, this is a person that is busy at work with big responsibilities. He's got money sitting around, he's responsible for, the taxes and the treasury. And he just leaves that behind and goes and follows Jesus. The things that you might think that's irresponsible, Matthew. Like, how could you walk away from that job? And don't forget that this job, it probably made him a lot of money because he was able to skim off the top as a tax collector. So he's walking away from that ability to go and follow Jesus. There's more to this story too. In verse 10 it says, while Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said, "It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. I've not come to call the righteous, but the sinners." Like, hello, Jesus, don't you see who's around you? This is what these Pharisees, these religious leaders are saying. Like, do you know who these people are? Do you know what they've done? Like, what are you doing sitting here? Like, you're losing your swagger by hanging out with these guys. These are like second-class citizens. These are notoriously crooked criminals, right? They're dirty. They're stealing from their own people. They're the lowest of the low. Like, just people hate them. And Jesus is hanging out with them. The Pharisees are just distracted by by people. And like, these are the wrong people. They're not fitting into the agenda. It wasn't helping them meet their goals. But what if their goals and agenda were wrong? See, Jesus didn't care. In fact, he reoriented the Pharisees' mindset. It wasn't about pleasing the religious people or even being religious. It was about being there to meet the needs of people that were hurting, people that had pain, people that had brokenness in their life, people that had, hurts or hang-ups or habits that were unhealthy. And maybe one of the things that we can learn from Jesus here is that you and I, if we're going to make a difference in this world, and if we're going to experience the kind of life that leaves us feeling joyful and leaves us feeling filled, we have to prioritize our life, or else someone else will. If you don't prioritize your life, somebody else will. And it's a slippery slope because we live in a world that's concerned with social norms. Like, what should you wear? What's cool? What is popular? What's outdated? What would you not be caught dead in, right? Gone are the days of simplicity and utility. Things, that don't serve a purpose. We purchase things to elevate status and comfort. And if we don't prioritize our life, someone else will. We run around chasing all kinds of things. Whatever it is that culture and society tell us to chase. See, the devil actually doesn't want to make you bad if he can just make you busy. He can get your attention off of God and off of the plans and purposes that God has for your life and just get you spinning your wheels over here on things that just don't really matter. See, Jesus knew this, and he knew that this would happen to you and to me. And this is why when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, right before he was getting ready to be arrested and beaten and crucified, he prays, not only for himself, but Jesus actually prays for you. He prays for you in your moments right now, in your time of need right now. Here's what Jesus said in his prayer. He said, I've given them your word, and the world has hated them, for they're not of the world any more than I'm of the world. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. They are not of the world, even as I'm not of it. So sanctify them by truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I have sent them into the world. See, Jesus isn't praying that we would just retreat from the world and we'd become this like little Christian church that's out of touch with reality, out of touch with their community. He's praying that we engage the world with the truth of the gospel. See, our goal as Christians isn't to become less like the world. Our goal is to become more like Christ and bring the hope of Jesus to the world. Jesus' true followers, they've not only been crucified to the world, but they'd also been raised to new life and sent back into the world to free others. Our goal isn't to be so heavenly minded that we are no earthly good. That's not the goal. The goal is that we've been rescued from darkness, we've been given the light, and we've been given something to share with other people. The hope that you have in Jesus, the forgiveness that you've received in Jesus, the love that you've got from Jesus. Why would we keep that to ourselves? See, if we're not living on mission, everyone else will be glad to tell you what your mission should be. We got to prioritize our own life, or someone else will. The other day I was riding in the car with one of my kids, and I plugged my phone in, and on the screen popped up an alert that actually said, your dinner is in an hour and 30 minutes. And my kid looked over at me and was like, why do you have dinner? Like, why is it telling you that dinner's coming? And I said, well, I like to eat, first off. And I said, well, it's interesting that you asked me that because I found that I have to actually calendar dinner. Like, I have to put dinner on the calendar. Because if I don't calendar dinner, like if I don't say, okay, from 5:30 to 6:30 is going to be dinner with the family, it's easy for me to let my calendar bleed through that time. We got into this conversation about how I calendar sleep. This is when I'm going to go to bed, and this is when I'm going to wake up. I calendar exercise. I put all of these things on my calendar because if I don't do it, I'm way more likely to just blow right on by it. And I'm going to not prioritize the things that matter to me most, and I'm going to prioritize whatever else is being put on my calendar by anybody. So we talked about disciplines, like this is what we're talking about. The art of making consistent, positive choices that steer you towards your goals and dreams. And so for that reason, that's why on my calendar right now is when I'm having dinner this week, when I'm exercising, when I'm waking up, when I'm going to sleep. And the disciples knew that being with Jesus was more important than anything else that they could have been doing. And they knew that. And so they prioritized being with him. They heard his invitation, and they said yes, no matter what it would cost them. They moved towards it. See, I think that it's possible to live in our fast-paced society and still develop a meaningful life. I'm convinced of that. But it's going to require that you don't just do more. You have to do more of what matters most. It's not just about filling your calendar. It's filling your calendar with things that matter the most. The things that you're gonna talk about one day. The things that actually you're gonna say, do you remember when? And you're gonna tell the story of whatever happened and that important thing. Like these are the moments in life. And there's 3 things that you can help practically eliminate the busyness in your life. And the first thing is to just regularly take inventory of your life. If you think about any store, you go into any store and you say, I'd like to purchase one of these. Do you have any more left? They pull out a scanner and they scan the barcode and they say, yeah, we've got 25 of them in stock in the back. Let me go check that out. They have an inventory of what's going on. They know what's happened. And when we understand how limited our time is and we inventory that, we make the most of our time. Some areas that you may want to inventory is your faith, your marriage, your family, your work. You can inventory your finances, inventory your mental health, your friendships, your physical health. These are things that if something is running low, you need to figure out how you can pour into that area of your life and fix it, correct it. Second thing that you need to do if you're going to live a life of purpose is you need to make tough decisions. If you're going to truly have a balanced life, you're going to choose the important thing over the urgent thing, and it's going to require tough decisions. Psalm 90:10, love this verse. It says, teach us to number our days and recognize how few they are, and help us spend them as we should. I just love the way that they says that. Help us spend the remaining days the way that we should. We need to make those decisions, and it means that if it isn't a clear yes, it's a clear no. We need to be willing to evaluate, eliminate, and execute, and do what matters most first. Remember, if you have time for what you choose to have time for. And the third thing is, makes sense to me, and it's obvious, but focus on things that will last. Focus your energy on the things that will last. Ask yourself, will this matter 10 years from now? Will this matter 5 years from now? Will my grandkids talk about this one day? Of the things that we do, 2 things come to mind that will last. The first is God, and the second is people. This is why Jesus was so intent on helping us see that loving God and loving others was the most important thing that we could do. Too much of our life can be categorized as just simply busy for busyness' sake. But actively pursuing the things that matter years from now add value and meaning to your life. This year I was talking with one of our youth leaders, an awesome, incredible youth leader, and we got talking about the ability that this person had to have more time to serve. And I was kind of talking, and they said, well, I've actually stepped away from a couple things. I've said no to a few things because I wanted to be able to say yes and commit myself to being there on Wednesday nights at youth night, to being there at different events and things, and I wanted to pour myself into this next generation. And I looked at that and I thought, man, they have taken inventory. They've made tough decisions and they've focused on things that are going to last and things that matter. So we need to say yes to what matters most. And I want to invite you to say yes, because I believe that God has an opportunity in front of every single one of us. And the ways that we can spend our life, the ways that we can spend our days. Jesus' great commandment was that we should love the Lord your God. And the second one was to love your neighbor as yourself. Today, we want to invite you to spend your life in a way that matters here at Hope City in particular. You know, at Hope City, our dream team is a group of people who have determined not to just do more, but to do more of what matters most. We're on a mission to point people to the hope of Jesus, to see them grow in relationships with one another and with God. And we know that this is what God has called us to. And it's possible that God's calling you to this as well. I know that we're busy, but I'm wondering if we've missed the boat by just being busy. Today, I want to invite you to say yes to Jesus' invitation to love your neighbor as yourself. Maybe this looks like serving on the dream team here at Hope City, and we've got a bunch of different teams that could fit and work with, and we have our hospitality team. Many of you were greeted by them as you walked in through the door today. They make all who come through our doors feel welcome and at home. This is an easy team to join. We have our kids team. Our kids team inspires the next generation to love God and to love others and to go and change the world. Our youth team creates an environment for students grades 6 through 12 to build relationships, to celebrate spiritual growth, and encourages students to grow in their relationships with Jesus. Or if you play a musical instrument or you sing, we would love to have you, audition for the worship team to lead people into God's presence and draw them closer to Him through music and worship. Our media team is a team that if you're creative and you take pictures or you create things and you bring beauty out of nothing, we would love to have you excellently and authentically capture moments of the Sunday experience to digitally communicate and welcome others to Hope City. I'm willing to bet that a lot of you, before you ever came to Hope City, experienced Hope City because of our media team. Whether that's social media, video, YouTube, doesn't matter. Our outreach team is a team that serves our community, that goes and is the hands and feet of Jesus here in Sarasota. Simple things. Our roadies team is a group of people that show up, the first one's in, the last one's out. They set this place up for you and for me to create a distraction-free environment that's clean and safe and welcoming for everybody that shows up here. Our tech team, they're the ones responsible for an environment that is a distraction-free audio-visual experience for you. You don't even know they're serving you. And that means they're doing their job really well. But at the end of our life, here's what I'm convinced of. I don't think that we're gonna talk about buttons we pushed or road cases that we got into the building early. I don't think that's what we're gonna talk about. Because I don't think that's actually what matters most. What matters most is people. It's relationships. It's the way that we loved one another. So I think that what we're going to talk about is the time that we were sitting together at the tech booth and the relationships that were formed back there. I think we're going to talk about the kids whose lives you interacted with in Hope City Kids. I think you're going to talk about the small group time that you have with your youth students. I think you're going to talk about the times that you get to lead people in worship and experience God's presence. I think that's what we're going to talk about. I want to encourage you to say yes to what matters most in your life. This is not because we need something from you. It's because I've experienced what it means to live a life of purpose. And I want that for you. I want you to experience living the life that God has gifted you with and inspired you to live. I want to help you take steps towards that, encourage you, because there's no job too little or too important for you. But I'm convinced that you and I may not need less in our life. We might just need simply more of what matters most.